Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Ace on Music. I'm joined by Sean, my co-host, and behind the scenes we got Mark and Rachel handling the technical aspects of what's going on. So I was sitting around the other day listening to some news reports about the music scene and stuff like that, and I got to thinking about something that has been something that Sean and I have talked about a number of times over the years, and that is this whole concept of bands that have gone on to become very famous but have no original members in the lineup anymore. This really hit me a few weeks ago. We lost Dusty Hill from ZZ Top, and that ended an era, a tremendous era, because ZZ Top is a band that is, what are they in there? About 50 years that they've been doing music. And during that entire 50-year span, it's the same three guys. It's always been the three guys that did that band. And that is a rare beast in the music industry, let me tell you. And also there are other bands that started off with a certain lineup and it didn't quite work out, so that they made changes and things like that. But I'm talking about bands today that have nobody who was there at the start anymore. And this really drove home as I was listening to a conversation, an interview that I'd heard with Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons from Kiss, where they were, they're now getting up in their age. They're currently embarked on their quote farewell tour, but we've heard that tale from them before. We'll see if that actually comes to fruition. But assuming that it does, they have talked on a number of occasions that they would be open to the concept that after they decide they don't want to do it anymore, that they would almost like franchise out the band, whether it be multiple Kisses that go around with different members, or they hire people who take their roles in the band, and they would still obviously generate income from it and things like that. But there would be a Kiss out there doing the show on the level that they're doing it, the big bombastic kind of show. And it led to Sean and I having a fireside chat about a bunch of bands that we realized are out there going and that we had actually seen live that really have absolutely nobody who's in the band right now that was one of the original members. In fact, one of the artists that I manage is in that category, and that's Thin Lizzy. I mean, when Thin Lizzy was formed, it was Brian Downey, Eric Bell, and Phil Lynott. And but they didn't really reach worldwide fame until they had the lineup that did the Jailbreak album, which was Scott Gorham, Brian Robertson, Brian Downey, and Phil Lynott. And so you could say that now that Phil has passed and Brian's not in the band anymore, Scott's still there. He was part of what we call the classic lineup, but he was not an original member. So really, the Thin Lizzy that's out there right now isn't got the original members. Another very famous example of this that you and I have seen many times is Foreigner. Now, you have this band who has this incredible catalog of songs, incredible reputation of hits out there. And now Mick Jones is still kind of running the show, but he's had a lot of health issues in the last few years, and
He still plays from time to time, right?
he does. He
Yeah.
occasionally will show up at a show and he'll do 2, 3, 4 songs, but the vast majority of shows that Foreigner does now, they do with a lineup that has nobody
Right.
who was in the big day, which really begs the question, like, is this really now just a tribute band, or is this really the artist? And I guess what it comes down to is it's like they're a brand. I mean, Foreigner, Kiss, whoever
Right.
you want to talk about, it's a brand. And the question that I would level at you, the fans, is would you rather see Foreigner as they are now or not see Foreigner at all? So,
Well, as a fan myself, I
yeah.
mean, even if I feel that way now, like I would not want to see a band without original members, but I think eventually I'd rather see the band in some kind of form or another. Just like you said about Kiss, like they want to continue. Hey, if you're a big Kiss fan, why not? And that's going to happen a lot now. I mean, we're losing a lot of people. We just lost Charlie Watts,
Yep.
Rolling Stones. You know, what the new generation, they're never going to get an opportunity to see a lot of these classic bands anymore. And the only way they could do it is if that torch is being carried, on the next level. So I'm all for it,
Heck, I've seen Foreigner many, many times. I know the guys in the band. They're absolutely fantastic band, and they do a real show. And I mean, Kelly Hansen, the singer now, is just an amazing singer. The guy has a charisma and an impact in his vocal style that's just, it's phenomenal.
Right.
And I don't feel let down or cheated at all when I see Foreigner, and I think it's amazing that they're doing this on this level.
It's like when we seen Queen and Adam Lambert.
Yeah.
Perfect example, man. When they did that little homage to Freddie, when they did the video screen. I mean, I'm getting goosebumps now just thinking about it, but it was like he was really there, and it was, I'm so glad I went to that show,
And it's also something that I think is much better than some of the alternatives. Like, you have certain situations happen where, like, a good example is Yes. Now, one of the most famous progressive bands out there.
You would have to pick the most complicated one to talk about.
Well, this is a band that broke barriers, who were really important in the creation of prog rock.
Right.
And the version of the official Yes that is out there right now has absolutely nobody who was in the band during their heyday even. But then you also get this situation where you have some of the original guys get together and split off and are basically doing a version of Yes without, or using the name Yes, but not in a bigger context. I mean, what is it? Rabin, Anderson, Wakeman.
Right.
But and they use the initials or whatever, but they always use the Yes artwork and the Yes logo and everything. So does the world need two Yeses?
I feel like we need a chalkboard right now to explain how this map goes.
Yes is one of those bands that if you sat down and listed all the band members over the years, it's this huge family chart that's got like 100 different people involved and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's a situation. Another one that is kind of manifested itself recently is Quiet Riot. I mean, when Frankie Bonelli passed away last year,
yes,
he was the last guy in the band who was an original member. We lost Kevin Dubrow years ago. We obviously lost Randy Rhoads many years ago.
Right.
And Carlos and I'm sorry, I'm spacing on his name, the bass player, Rudy.
Yeah, Rudy.
Carlos and Rudy have been doing other things for years.
Right.
Now, I know that it was announced recently that Rudy is coming back in.
Yeah.
So suddenly Quiet Riot's going to have an original member back in it.
Yeah, but Frankie wasn't even an original member, right?
No.
He was like 5 years later than from the original member.
But again, he's one of those situations where you have a member who was part of what we call the classic lineup, where they actually made their fame and fortune like that.
They go on a 2 or 3 year hiatus when they first started, I believe. Like they started in 81, and then they didn't do anything from like 82 to 83 or something like that.
Until Metal Health came out?
I think so.
Because that was quite a departure from the stuff they were doing before as well.
Yeah,
right?
but there's almost a 2 year gap of hiatus until they started making hit songs. So it's up for debate on when did Quiet Riot really start and get going there, a lot of these bands.
And I'm not sure. Let me think about who's in Queensryche right now. Is there anybody left in Queen? Oh, Michael Wilton is still in there.
Yeah.
And
the drummer just left a couple years ago, right?
Yeah, the drummer's gone. The singer's gone. Chris DeGarmo's gone.
Yeah. The new lineup's great though.
They are. They're. I would go see Queensryche anytime. I mean, that young man they have singing for them now. He's got a voice like nobody's business.
Oh,
It's just
sounds
amazing.
just like
and
it's all healthy.
You can, there are certain, in most bands there's usually what I call anchor members. Like you look at Sabbath, for example. Sabbath has done some amazing music with a number of people, but the anchor was always Tony Iommi and Geezer Butler. I mean, they were the ones who ran that show, whether it was Ronnie singing or Ozzy, or if Vinny was on the drums, or if whoever was playing drums. I mean, they're the core, but they're there from the beginning, so that's still a dynamic where I think they deserve to be doing that.
Right.
But like, how do you feel about, like, I know that you and I are both Kiss fans, but Would you go see Kiss if you knew it was no Gene, Paul, Ace, Peter, none of those guys were involved? Would you still want to go see it?
Well, I guess it depends on how much the tickets are and what's going on at the time. And if I have, a family member that who knows by then I'll probably have grandkids. If they want to go see Kiss, yeah, of course, I would go.
Well, I definitely would go. I mean, the way I look at it is that,
Unless they really sucked. And then,
well, okay, yeah, obviously. Well, I'm assuming that if they're going to present it on that kind of level, it's not going to suck.
Right. Well, they have to keep that brand going, right, and make sure that.
But from my own playbook, you take a band like Kiss. I mean, I grew up loving them when I was a kid, but I lived in a part of the world where seeing Kiss live was just not in the cards. I mean, they would never come to a area that was as low population as I lived in, and I wasn't in a position financially or geography-wise to travel to go see them at the time. So it wasn't until my adulthood that I actually first saw Kiss. And when I first saw Kiss, it was in the non-makeup years. But I always dreamt about, seeing those videos, and you see the dynamics and the over-the-top stuff with the makeup and the flames and the blood and all this.
Right.
I always wanted to see it. So, in the 90s, when you started seeing this evolution of tribute bands coming out, that was to me kind of a variation on what we're talking about here. When I would see one of these Kiss tribute bands who really did it upright, who did it with the pyro, who did it with the sign, who did it with the makeup, and really made an effort to recreate the thing, it was a ticket to go see something that I never got to see.
There was quite a few of those bands, right? Like I remember, well, here in LA, you were in Canada at the time. We had a band called Black Diamond, I believe.
I worked with them.
Oh, did you? Okay, that's right. Well, there was another one too. I thought you worked with.
Well, there was also the one that the guy who is the spitting image of Gene, whose name they had one called Cold Gin, which Tommy Thayer was part of, who's now the actual guitar player in Kiss. So.
Yeah, I remember that. They used to play down here by the beach all the time.
But tribute bands have actually been kind of a conduit to help some of these artists go. Like, I mean, we can name a number of bands
That's a whole other topic, right?
It is, but I mean, we talked about Yes a moment ago. The guy who is singing for Yes right now was in a Yes tribute band, and they found him that way. Or
STP, their singer, the new singer.
Stone Temple Pilots for sure. Or how? I mean, I think, and I could be wrong on this, but I think the fellow who's singing for Queensryche right now was also a tribute band guy.
Yeah.
And even, well, it's not exactly accurate to call it a tribute band, but he was singing Journey covers. But Arnell, the singer in Journey now, was found through YouTube videos that he had posted of him singing Journey songs.
Right.
So I mean, that they have almost become sort of the B teams for some of these bands to find artists. I don't think there's anything wrong with that sort of thing. I love the concept of tribute bands. And I mean, I enjoy seeing them. I mean, there was even venues in LA that did nothing but play tribute bands all the time.
They still do.
Yeah,
they still have them around here.
And then, of course, there's the offshoot where you get these weird combinations. Like, I was always fascinated with Dred Zeppelin.
Oh, I love Dred Zeppelin.
They're awesome.
I've seen them live a few times.
Get this band doing reggae versions of Zeppelin songs with this big Elvis guy singing them.
It was awesome.
What was his name? He had
oh man,
I don't remember
me on the spot right now, but I used
his
to
name slips my mind, but he had an unusual name too.
Yeah, they all had nicknames. What about Max Sabbath?
Max Sabbath, another great example of this is how tribute bands have started to evolve. Max Sabbath, for those of you who don't know it, is this band that sings Black Sabbath songs that have the lyrics changed to talk about fast food, and they dress up like ghetto versions of the McDonald's characters, like Ronald McDonald and all this stuff, and they're awesome to see live. If you ever get the chance to see Max Sabbath, I highly recommend it.
You know who else you got to see? I highly recommend. There's this band they play every year at Christmas time called Krampus. And you heard of Green Jello or Green Jelly?
I've seen them, yeah.
Okay, so that guy, he designs all the costumes, or I believe he designs the costumes, but they all come out and they have costumes out, and then everyone goes there. They have like this these.
But Green Jello's not a tribute band. I mean, they were a legitimate band. I mean,
Yeah.
they had albums, and they even had a hit. At least it was a hit in Canada. It was called it was the Three Little Pigs
Right,
song.
right. No, but what I'm saying, Krampus, they play a lot of cover songs, and they're all related to Christmas and stuff. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, good.
Well, we've really strayed from
I
bands
know.
without original members, but
Oh, sorry.
there you go. I mean, you have. I think that you're going to see this more and more in the future because, well, I mean, let's be blunt. Longevity of certain band members, especially in the rock and roll business, isn't exactly all that high. And at a certain point, you're going to have biology just take people away from us, and
Especially if you're a fan of 50s, 60s, and 70s.
exactly. And
You
if
know.
you're going to see these bands, and like I think, and I could be mistaken on this front, but that I don't know the name of the band off the top of my head, but that song "War," what is it good for? That big hit from the '70s.
Oh, yes.
I think that the guy who was the original guy who did that passed away, but his nephew kind of picked up the ball and still performs those songs kind of under the moniker, almost like playing the role. Now, obviously that he's not the guy who did it. He's related to the guy who did it, and
The band is on the tip of my tongue. I can't think of the name right now.
but
Might be on my list here. But yeah, there's a lot of bands. Humble Pie don't have original members.
are they still going?
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Yeah. Canned Heat.
Oh yes, of course. Canned Heat. I mean, they were such an unusual band to begin with.
Yeah,
But
I believe they're from the area over here, South Bay. They were one of the regulars at a club here in Torrance. And
now I could be wrong on this front. You know that band Eagles of Death Metal?
yes.
Isn't there somebody who was in Canned Heat that's involved in that band?
Oh, geez, I don't know.
I'd heard that. Maybe I'm wrong because they just have a style like that a little bit.
We'll
But
have to look that up.
but regardless, I mean, there are also certain bands where you have the personalities in the band are not as paramount as other bands. Like, I mean, if you have a band like, say, the Rolling Stones, it would be difficult to see the Rolling Stones without a Keith Richards or a Mick Jagger. But if I go see, say, Chicago, where they have this almost orchestra going on,
Yeah.
I wouldn't really care if it was just other people. I mean, it's not like there is a cult of personality around any particular people in Chicago, as far as I'm aware.
Right.
But if they can play the songs to the level that I think is acceptable, I think it would still be fun to go see it.
What about bands that have a lot of the original members, but they can't call it the band's name?
Give me an example.
Johnny Vatos.
Oingo Boingo.
Oingo Boingo. Like, I think most of the majority of the band is in his.
Yeah, there's a great example of what we were just talking about a moment ago, and that is that in the situation like Oingo Boingo, when you have a personality and a front man as big in all of that as Danny Elfman, and has gone on to become so famous after Oingo Boingo, that it's difficult to put that card on the table and say this is Oingo Boingo without Danny Elfman.
Exactly.
But whereas, like in the example I gave earlier with Chicago, if any particular member of Chicago was swapped out, I don't think the vast majority of people would know it.
Probably not.
So, it also comes down to ownership, of course. Certain people, like, we go back to the Yes scenario. I know that up until his passing, the only member of Yes that was in every single lineup was Chris Squire, and he subsequently owned the name Yes and all of the stuff like that. Now that he's passed away, they have this setup right now where it's no original members. I mean, you do have Jeff Downs, who was in Yes on the Drama album back in the early 80s, but he wasn't in the heyday of the 60s and 70s, when they were really at their peak and all that sort of stuff. And he also wasn't in it in their renaissance when they did the 90215 and Big Generator and all that stuff with Trevor Rabin. He wasn't part of that either. He was there for just that one record. And I don't know. So
I was lucky enough to go see him at the Whiskey Wakeman's version of Yes. Well, you call it what they called it, right?
Yeah, what they call it, ARB, which is Anderson Rabin, or ARW, Anderson Wakeman, or Anderson Rabin Wakeman. Now, I saw that in Vegas and absolutely adored it because I know I'm one of these people who thinks the Rabin era of Yes is my favorite era. I love John Anderson, don't get me wrong. I think he's a fantastic vocalist, and I love the work that he did with Rabin during that era. I mean, I think that those albums are, and again, I'm in the minority, where I think the Talk album is the best Yes album that was ever made. What excited me about ARW was that they were playing those songs from that era of the music, which is my favorite era, which often gets overlooked because if you're witnessing a version of Yes that has Steve Howe in it,
Yeah.
he doesn't really want to play the songs from other members of Yes from the past.
Right.
And so you're not going to get to see any of the stuff off of Talk or
Right.
Big Generator and things like that. He grudgingly will occasionally do Owner of a Lonely Heart just because it was so big. And in fact, Chris Squire once told me that if you want to know if John Anderson and him are fighting, then you'll hear Owner of a Lonely Heart in the set that night because Anderson would make Steve Howe play it just out of spite. So.
Right.
So,
It wasn't the show that we went had Anderson and Wakeman on the same on the same gig.
yeah, and Rabin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
That's right, ARW they call it. So.
Yeah, I loved that show.
It was fantastic.
I got to see it I won tickets on the radio station, and I got to see him at the Whiskey.
Yeah, I went to Las Vegas and saw it there and was just blown away. I just loved it. So
awesome.
Anyway, that was kind of fun to talk about. So in any case, I think these bands are still worth supporting. And if you get a chance to see Foreigner this year, they'll blow your mind. And no original members, don't worry about it. You will love it. If you love songs like Cold as Ice or Head Games or Waiting on a Girl Like You, all of those, you will not be disappointed. Trust me on that.
And then Lizzie too.
And then Lizzie too. In the meantime, I want to thank you all for your continued support. You can contact us at acetalksmusic@gmail.com if you want to send us comments. You can leave comments in below here wherever you're enjoying this program. And in the meantime, I want to thank everybody behind the scenes as well for helping us today, and all of you out there for your continued support. So until next time, stay safe.